Now, Idayat Hassan, the only lady in our group tonight, the conversation about security is extremely interesting, but I want to look at another aspect of INEC's role, the umpire, and that is the issue of financing. That's another place where INEC is not completely independent. INEC is dependent upon the cooperation of other agencies of government to get enough funding to be able to, carry out its functions. Now, do you think between 2015, when this process last took place on this scale, and today, the issue of funding, which to a large extent is responsible for late delivery of election materials, security men not showing up on time because they haven't been given their allowances, and other such things, has changed? Has it, from your observation point, has that changed?
I think likely it's not really changed, because if you look at the ECOPs that led to the delay of the release of the fund for INEC, you find that it took so many months until almost the end of last year they did not have the resources. But in terms of if they have received cooperation from previous administration, we really have to also give it to some of this administration, because during the Jega-led INEC, they had a lot of cooperation from the Jonathan administration, and our interaction from INEC has also shown that they've received all the resources they needed as at the end of 2018. And it's also important to note that INEC runs an election management system that I think it's broken into 4 different components. And they track all these components, and with the assiduous way we are following them as stakeholders that are involved in the process, I think that is going on well. But it's also important that when we say that election is actually a process, it's not a one-day event, situations like having resources made available few months into the elections should not actually happen, especially if you are saying that an institution is on a first-line charge. That should not happen, but politics often comes in. And we should not also take it away that is also another way of stifling the activities of some of these institutions when they work. Then elections in Nigeria is quite costly. When we take a look at it maybe from African perspective, people tend to say that maybe with our population, it's not as expensive as it should be, but it's actually a very, very expensive venture if you start looking at it from places like Rwanda, example, per head comes to just a fraction of what it costs in Nigeria. Now, this budget for the election, take out the running of INEC. You see what is even allocated for feeding dogs. And we had this discussion that what will these dogs do? They said the dogs are actually able to control more people than what a policeman or any of the security agents is able to do. But in the real sense, on the field, monitoring elections since 2011 as in almost a full-time affair, I rarely see dogs really on the street. So accountability remains a very key issue. Then the fact that even when you draw up a budget, there will always be this kind of force majeure like what we are experiencing with the loss of over 4,600 cards, which is not planned for. This has further raised the cost of running elections for the election management body and having to improvise few days into the elections.
That's a very comprehensive answer. I thank you so much for that. Before we go any further, the voters themselves have been weighing in on their expectations of this elections, and throughout this period, especially the run-up to the election, this first one on Saturday, we've been to different parts of the country to take a look at some demography. That was a word from yesterday.
Yes, that from yesterday.
The demography of voters. And one of our correspondents who did that was Olu Phillips. Yeah. And we're going to start off with him because he did his right in Lagos.
So the idea is to have a feel of the
people. Of what people are saying, what they're thinking, what their expectations are, and so on. So here's Olu Phillips.